Okay, well, welcome guys to the first interview for the essential trait of fortitude. Today on the phone, we got Peter Scott the fourth. Very important. You got to remember that fourth part. He's the founder of the Fearless Life Academy and author of the #1 best-selling book, The Fearless Mindset, which, man, I've known you before the book, and I've still, I think sometimes like when you know somebody and you read the book, it's like, oh yeah, I know the guy's cool, but the book was awesome. And yeah, man,
Thank you,
got to
brother.
know more about
Thank
you and got to definitely learn a lot about different ways I could be holding myself back and tons of awesome things for what we're going to be talking about here as well. So yeah, happy to have you on the call.
Andrew, thank you, man. It's such a dude. First of all, it's been amazing to look back and reflect on all the amazing adventures and experiences that we've shared, from hiking the Inca Trail in Machu Picchu to the immersions that we've done, the Authentic Man program in DC, and to be able to connect with you and then actually speak to your tribe here is awesome, man. So thank you for reaching out and having me be a guest here for your community.
Absolutely. No. So, a little bit of for everybody that's listening, fill you in as to how I view you, Pete. It's, you have been somebody that's always been pursuant of just excellence in many senses. And the subject that you focus on of being fearless has been huge. And, I remember a time too in Peru, how there was a lot of fear. So we came up with you around that.
A lot of fear, yeah. Just traveling internationally. It was like one of my first trips, internationally. And you spent time before that in Southeast Asia and all of that. So you got to witness my insecurity and my fear of the unknown around that trip.
Right. But I've always known you as a real raw and real guy, and somebody that's always pursuing greatness. And I've definitely seen you overcome a lot of fears that most people, it's shocking, man, how many people out there will see a fear in their life and they just, no matter what, they'll stay clear of it, no matter at all expenses. And, from the moves that you've done and the story that you have, you've always just done a lot to kind of always push yourself to overcome and actually have overcome so much, which sometimes that's not the story for a lot of people. So, yeah. So with that, I'll just let you kind of fill us in. How would you describe your book? I mean, I could describe it for people.
Yeah,
how would you describe it?
The way I would describe my book is it's a collection of really mindset shifts, shifts in your ways of being and actionable strategies so that you actually transform your relationship with fear so that it no longer stops you. And fear is such a general term, right? The viewer of this interview may be experiencing the fear of rejection when meeting a girl, right? Then approaching a woman that he's attracted to. It may be fear of failure, of you leaving your 9-to-5 job to go launch your business. There's some fear of the unknown associated with that. There's all these different types of fear. And the reason I wrote my book in the first place was because my entire life had been consumed by fear. Like you said, we've done some experiences where you've seen my own evolution and my own growth since we've known each other. I think we met back in around 2010 or 2011. So it's been a while. But I wrote this book first and foremost for me, for like a way to figure out how do I understand this underlying insecurity, this deep doubt, this deep fear in my life that's keeping me from taking the action that I want. And so I tell very powerful stories from my own life, from my clients' lives that I coach, and share really actionable strategies. So for any of the guys in the group that want to read the book, they can actually go and implement that in their life and get results.
Which, guys, at the bottom of the Fortitude file is a link to Peter's book.
Thank you.
So you can find it right there. And just jumping into it, man, with some of the questions that came up from me reading your book and just from, we always have good conversations.
Yep.
And, one of the ones I wanted to kind of start off with was, I feel like me working with a lot of guys, I found that one of the bigger issues, I wanted to hear your thoughts on it. One of the bigger issues I see with fear and with fortitude and whatnot is like, a lot of the times people aren't even willing to admit the fear that they do have in their life. I'm not sure if you've seen that a lot, but I just have a lot of guys that, we all want to believe that we're fearless already, I remember that brand too. Wearing that back in like middle school or something. Wasn't accurate, but I wanted to believe that it was accurate.
Yep.
So how much would you say that plays a huge role in people's Like, is that a big, huge first step to you, or it's like actually even becoming aware of what it is you
Yes.
fear? Cool. Because I think there's some
It's
people
actually
really,
the only first step, like aware.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll share on that. Awareness is hands down the first step because, I always say being fearless is not being without fear. Being fearless is having the courage, the confidence, and the certainty to go do that thing that scares you. And that's really, in my experience, the definition of fortitude. It's when you experience fortitude, it means that you are so committed to take action through the pain that you're experiencing, through the unknown, through the doubt, through whatever is slowing you down. You taking action in the face of that is a result from being fortuitous, right? And so I always say there's three types of people that are affected by fear. The first type of person is the person that knows that fear is stopping them and they're willing to do something about it. These are some of the guys that are actually in this program right now, right? They may have noticed that there's a fear that's slowing them down or stopping them around, not only achieving the quality relationship that they want, but also the quality of life overall, right? That's the first type of person. The second is a type of person that you just asked about, is the person that knows that fear is stopping them, but they're so afraid that they're unwilling to do anything about it, right? And that's a challenging position to be in, but the hardest is the third type of person. And the third type of person affected by fear is the person that doesn't even realize in the first place that fear is what's stopping them. And so to answer your question, absolutely, brother, like awareness is the most important thing. Is I work with a lot of high performers, right? High achieving entrepreneurs. And recently I spoke to a group of 100 CEOs. These are all business owners of, let's say, $5 to $50 million businesses, right? So small
Mhm.
businesses, but bigger than most startup businesses. I knew that speaking to them on the topic of fear wouldn't resonate because they didn't identify with fear, right? They think that they have already overcome it. But what I knew they experienced a lot of, and what they knew was stress. And so for any of the guys in this group that are watching this that are experiencing stress but may not identify with fear, I would have them consider that stress is just the high achiever's version of fear. Like
Right.
when we follow your stress, whether there's stress around money or stress in a relationship or stress in your body, what we'll find is an underlying fear that's causing that stress. So it affects everybody.
Yeah, I remember hearing that from you. I think I remember you posting it, and or we talked about it for a little bit, or what it was. But I remember you saying that, and it came at a perfect time. It was about like 6 months after I had like a physical breakdown. Like my
Yeah.
body was just like, "Hey, pay attention. You're stressed out." I thought something crazy was going down, and something crazy was going down. But a lot of what it was I was not aware of how much actual anxiety and stress I had dealt with at different times. And it's so easy for us to be like, oh, stress, I can handle that, not a problem, and you just move on, past it. But life has expanded that much more after kind of realizing, like, wow, a lot of what's coming up is simply coming up because of something that I'm not really aware of and I'm not really
Yeah.
facing. And once I did, a lot changed. And then lo and behold, like a few months later, I hear you say that, like, follow your stress, and at the base of it, you'll find fear. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh,
Isn't that
that was,
isn't that
that was
crazy? Like,
perfect.
yeah, because we're conditioned, especially as men, right? Like we're
Totally.
conditioned to be fearless, meaning without fear, right? To not show insecurity or to not show anger or sadness. And a mutual friend of ours, my best friend Sean Stevenson, he gave me
Mm-hmm.
great advice recently, and that was there's no such thing as like a bad emotion, right? So if you think about sadness or stress or anger, the thing that causes pain is not the emotion, it's repressing that emotion. And you experience that, right, Andrew? I mean, you had this stress that you're experiencing it and you weren't facing it, so it actually manifested physically. And I've done this too. I mean, a couple years ago, I remember there was a moment where I was building my business, right? So I had a lot of stress around that. I was in a relationship that ended abruptly, so like my heart was broken. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with this woman. That happened. And I had a devastating event with a family member where my grandmother attempted suicide. And she's okay, thank God. but all this happened within like weeks of each other, right? And I
Right.
literally broke down. I remember there's a video somewhere on Facebook that I posted. I always teach like lessons that I'm learning through videos, and I'm on this run in San Diego on the beach, and I literally just stop and like sob, and all these emotions flood through me, and I don't hide it anymore. Like, I'm by myself and I release it, and it was one of the most freeing experiences to be able to do that and to actually have the awareness to look at what are these lessons that I need to learn. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what am I ignoring in my life? And once I gathered those lessons, was able to process what I was experiencing, then I can go operate with more awareness, more confidence, and more certainty towards the life that I'm really committed to creating.
Totally. And when I'm hearing you say that, it's reminding me of actually the time that we were in DC, and some of the things that I was learning in at that time, which was, women could pick up on fear, and they could pick up on bullshit like no other. And they'll look at the macho alpha guy, and there's a lot of macho alpha guys that are great men. I don't want to demean or slam any of those guys. There's tons of guys that are great, that are in that category. But I'm talking about the stereotypical image that a lot of us could think of, the guy that's kind of like maybe the partier, kind of intense social guy. And they might look at that and they could see the BS. They could see the vulnerability that the guy's not willing to face. Yep. They see the strengths and the weaknesses. And it was a shocker for me to see, like, the men that I came to learn a lesson that was very similar to what I think women naturally kind of live with, which was the strongest men I've ever come across in my life are the ones that are the most willing to be vulnerable and to not be collapsed by it, but just to experience it. Say, you know what? Life's difficult right now for this reason, and I'm still going to push ahead. And women find that so damn sexy, and they can see when the guy's not really.
Yes, they do.
So,
yeah, and think about the psychology behind why, women. When a woman is in the presence of a man who's truly vulnerable, right, truly open, she feels safe. I think that's it. She feels safe. Like, I've had past relationships where I was trying to be, I was trying to put on this facade, right, of the man that I wanted to become, but I wasn't yet, and it was very fake. And I remember that the women that I was dating at this stage in my life, and I'm now, at the time of this recording, 32. I'm turning 32 soon, so this was probably like my mid-20s. They were insecure. They were unstable. They weren't trusting me because I wasn't trusting myself. Right? I was hiding. I was projecting. I was doing all these things. It wasn't until I became comfortable in my own skin to where I was attracting these incredible women that were not just, beautiful, but were smart and driven and evolved and all these qualities that I wanted. I think that's really important for the man listening this and watching this to take away from our interview, Ander, is that being your vulnerable self, right? And that's not a self that's like, oh, I'm just gonna kind of like remove the skeletons from my closet or hang my dirty laundry. Like, a lot of people think that's what vulnerability is. Vulnerability is just being real and raw and being okay with who you are. When you do that, you attract a quality of woman that you wouldn't have attracted before. So when you talk about these macho men, right? But let's just say kind of like more like the shallow, less evolved macho men, right? They may have women in their lives, but how are the quality of those women, right? Where it's like, when you step more into being comfortable in your own skin and being vulnerable, the type of women that you attract into your life and that you're interacting with are so much more extraordinary.
Right.
So,
yeah, and I think a perspective that I have on it all is that women have a lot more abundance naturally. If she's beautiful, if the woman's beautiful and she's kind of socially active, she's around people, she has just a basic good head. She doesn't even have to be profound. She just has a basic, psychology about her. She's going to have a lot more options than a lot of guys will have. And I think when you have a lot of options, things start turning into a quality thing, not a quantity thing. If I work with men, there's a lot of men that start with, I want more dates. And then once they have more dates, they go to the mindset that women start in, which is, I can get dates. I want the right date. I want a quality date.
Yes.
And I would say that like women, when I was hearing you talk, it was reminding me of when I've been on dates, and there's a lot of men that if a woman starts crying, they want to back the woman away from it. They're like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You know, everything, they want to calm her down as fast as possible because their ego is kind of tied up in it. It's like, I don't want to feel like I'm making you feel bad, and I need to fix this. But the moment you actually, and it kind of ties around to what you're talking about with Sean Stevenson too, was the moment you actually let a woman just feel what she's feeling, she's like, oh my gosh, this guy is just so, he's real. He allows me to be real, and he just sits with it. And the moment you allow a woman to do that, her emotions just, she experiences them and she instantly rolls right on past them. It's the moments where you're like, don't experience that. It's okay. It's okay. But then she really gets caught up on it. And I think it's the same thing with fear and with being fortuitous. You know, this is a sneak peek for a lesson that's coming up in the next essential trait, but I never got over my fear of talking to women when it came to, I mean, I still would have fear like that. I think you always naturally will have a sense of like, oh, this could go bad. This could be embarrassing or whatnot. But the majority of the fear that I really used to experience before it became a habit for me to be able to talk to women, I was always trying to force myself past it. I was always trying to act like I wasn't nervous. And I remember the thing that actually got me over it was when I go, you know what? My hands are shaking. I know I want to go talk to her. I'm not even talking to this woman yet. And I'm freaked out. And I can feel that my voice is going to crack and it's going to change when I speak to her. And instead, I just sat with it and I tried to get really attached to it. Like, if this had a color, what color would it be? This emotion that I'm feeling, moving, where's it at? You know, and then I was like, is it actually, I remember asking myself, is this actually, I think I worded it as anxiousness in the beginning. I said, is this actually anxiousness or is this something else? I was like, you know what? A lot of the things that I'm feeling, like the warmth in my chest, the buzzing in my body, it actually feels really good. I'm just titling it as something that's bad. And the moment I just sat with it, I was like, yeah, I'm feeling this. But I, for some reason, can suddenly go talk to her. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. It makes me think of a quote by a man named Fritz Peel, I think is his name. And he said that fear is just excitement without the breath. Fear is just excitement without the breath. That's one to write down. If you're watching
that is one to write down.
Because like, man, there's so many powerful applications for that quote. You know, let's talk about the number one fear of all human beings is public speaking, right? We know that more than death. Right. And yet the feelings that I have when I fear public speaking are the same exact feelings when I feel excitement around public speaking. And it's you know, I always say there are two types of fear. I want to share this, Ander, because this is, I think, so valuable for the guys watching this, is that in the process of having the awareness that, okay, there's some fear there, like you were feeling with approaching that girl, right? Or that woman. It's being able to label what type of fear that is, because there's rational fears that keep us alive. Those are really good, you know, fears. The fear that you would feel, you know, being woken up in the middle of the night to a burglar breaking into your home, that fight or flight response, that's a good thing. Right? That's a good thing that you feel that way. Walking down an alley somewhere and having somebody approach you with a knife, like that fear is a good thing that you feel. Now, the other type of fear is an irrational fear. So the first one's rational, the second one's irrational, and irrational fear is a fear that keeps you from living. Okay, and that's the fear of public speaking, the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, the fear of the unknown, the fear of charging what you're worth if you're an entrepreneur. And the key is to label whatever it is that you're feeling as, oh my gosh, this is so irrational, because the first fear keeps you from danger, right? But in our everyday life, like I live in San Diego, I live in North County, San Diego, near like Del Mar and La Jolla and stuff like that. There's not a whole lot of imminent danger around me, you know, if I'm going to be real. So most of the fears that I'm feeling on a daily basis are irrational fears keeping me from living. And the only way to overcome that, just like you did, is to, number one, label that, feel that without judgment, and then go do that thing that scares you. Okay, right. That's the only way. So like I've become a lot more, well, now I'm in a relationship, so I don't have like the underlying agenda that I may have had in the past of approaching a woman. But even when I was single before my current girlfriend, I was so much more comfortable in approaching because I've done it so many times. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of work that I've done that you and I have talked about as friends for a long time that has helped me improve my ways of being, my self-talk, different rituals that I do to just feel in a general basis more confident, more certain in myself. Then it didn't have
Right.
to do with tactics and techniques and all these kind of surface level things that a lot of people teach today.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that was actually one thing that I really liked about your book was the question that you helped give to people to frame whether or not it was irrational or not is this fear keeping me alive or is this fear keep me from fully living? I was like, that's just
Yes.
such a good question, which kind of puts me on to something else, which is, in my position, I have people come to me all the time with questions. I have a question for you. And, men, women, people that are, elderly in age, younger, everything. And a lot of the time, it's very rare for me to find somebody asking a question that I think is really the question they should be asking. They oftentimes ask things that, like, you're not going to get as good of an answer as you expected. This would be better. And that's why, actually, for those that don't know, I actually have a tattoo here and it says ask better questions. So if I could ask you questions all day about fear, but
Yeah.
this is your prime area. So I'm curious, what questions do you think are the questions that people should be asking? Or what questions do you ask yourself about fear, or people that are very successful in dealing with fear? In what way are they focusing? What are their questions?
Oh, good question. So, I'm gonna kind of like let this one just free flow because you can't really prepare
Totally.
for something like this. Um, the first thing, Andrew, that comes in my mind is I believe that there's a wisdom inside of us that um, exceeds our own current life experience. So what I mean is right now I'm 32 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's advice that I would have given my 20-year-old self as a 32-year-old that I wish I did. And I wish I asked myself. So the question that comes to mind when you ask me this question is when I'm challenged with something, right? When I'm outside of my comfort zone, when I feel fear, when I feel stress, whatever it is, I think a great question to ask myself is I would close my eyes and I would like connect in a way with the version of me that is older and wiser, right? So if I'm 30, let's say I'm 30 years old right now, I'm 32, but let's just say I'm 30. If I was to ask, what would my 40-year-old self do right now, right? What would my 50-year-old self tell me right now? And when I'm able to think about that and operate from it, all the weight, the overwhelm, the pressure that I feel, there's so much pressure in my life. But the pressure isn't because of my environment. It's not because of an event. It's not because of a person in my life. The pressure is because there's a story that I'm making up about things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I was to ask, what would a more evolved version of me tell myself? That question allows me to find an answer that's already inside of me. Like, I don't believe that there's answers that we need to seek outside of us. I think it's important to have, a mentor like you are. I think it's
Right.
important to be a part of a brotherhood or a group of men moving towards similar goals and facing similar challenges. But at the end of the day, I believe that every question or every answer that you're seeking is already inside of yourself. It's just asking that question to find the answer. So that would be
Totally.
mine.
Gotcha. Okay. I like it. I like it. And it's funny how many times I've either been on a date or approaching some woman, and afterwards some older gentleman comes up. He's like, "Hey, way to go!" It's like
Yeah.
gonna encourage me on, or he's like, "Hey, that girl's really into you. I could tell. She really is."
I love
And
that.
and it's funny because it's just you see a lot of the young. Yeah, I don't get that from a younger guy. The younger guy's like, "How'd he do that?" Or just, "I wish I would have talked to her." But the older guys are always like, "That's right. You just got to go up and talk to the girl." So I guess for anybody that's worrying about rejection, just realize that your older self is going to be that guy saying like, "You need to go up and talk to her." So yeah,
Yep.
all right,
Absolutely.
cool. So one subject that has helped me out a lot And even when you and I went with, a set of other people, amazing people, to Peru.
Yep.
I remember when I was going, it was not necessarily easy time for me to go. It was just there was things going on financially at that time. I was looking at changing a business that I had to something else, and there was just a lot of questioning going on. And I remember that the way I approached that traveling trip was how I've approached a lot of traveling trips and a lot of other commitments in my life, which is the whole, making inaction impossible, and the whole burning of the boats type of theory. Yeah. Where I was like, this is a great group of people that's heading out to Peru. This is going to be a good thing. If I leave this trip as something that is just an option, I'm probably going to back out of it. Yep. But instead, I could buy the tickets. I could have no insurance based on me going, and I'm going to push myself to go do it. And there's been a lot of different things, like business ventures I've done, where it's the same thing. I'm going to make it where there's no way. In fact, actually, this makes me remember a long time ago when I was learning first how to approach women, and it was really difficult. Mm-hmm. I had a roommate at that time, and I had paid him $100. And I said, anytime you see me do a double take, so anytime you see me look at a girl once and then I look at her again and I don't talk to her, you keep the $100. Oh, and he held me to that.
Wow, I like it.
And that helped a lot. So I know you have stories like with moving and so many different things. So what's your take on the whole burning of the boats and forcing yourself to take action?
I think it's non-negotiable. I think back to 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I'm sleeping on a half-inflated air mattress on the floor of an empty apartment. Okay, I'm working for a company actually that we met through Lifebook, right? And amazing company. I'm working for them as a coach and a sales guy and a business development guy. And overnight, I lose my sole source of income, right? So I'm living in Scottsdale, Arizona. Overnight, the company and I decide to part ways, and I lose this sole source of income. And at the time, I was in a relationship that also abruptly ended. And so it felt like my world was falling apart, right? And I knew at that time, I'm 28 years old, that I really wanted to become an entrepreneur, to launch a business, to step into something around personal growth. Could have been speaking, coaching, writing. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew I was called to do that. My background was investment banking, something completely different. I knew that it would be very easy for me to simply tap my network and say, hey, I'm out of a job. I'm looking for an opportunity in investment banking to find something, right? And that something would be safe. It'd be secure. I'd be getting paid good money. But I knew that didn't have heart and meaning to me. And I remember being in a conversation with a potential mentor, a man that I knew could teach me not just the skill sets, the marketing, the sales, the systems to build a coaching business, but also the mindset, the belief in myself, the vision, the commitment, all these things. And the challenge was that it required an investment of $20,000 to work with this man, literally right. 20 grand. And I remember in that moment, number one, being terrified, right, of, oh my gosh, I'm stepping into the unknown to build a business. I knew I couldn't do it on my own. Like I just knew, like with what I had in the bank account, with my cost of living, I had a runway that would run out if I didn't get immediate results. And I knew that by hiring a mentor, it allowed me to collapse time. I could learn things from somebody who had 20 more years experience than I did, and collapse time and get, results in a few months that would normally take me a few years to do, right? And I made the investment. I basically transferred everything that I had in terms of funds. I borrowed money from family. I took on debt, that story, right? But in doing so, it forced me to metaphorically burn the boats, as you're saying. And when I think back to the success that I've had in business and the growth that I've experienced these last few years, is because of that moment. Because I had my back against a wall. I had no choice. It didn't matter how terrified I was, how insecure I was about my message. I had all these excuses that I could have used, but I knew that that I had to pay rent the end of that month. I had to find a way. And the only way to do that was by taking action. And when you invest $20,000 to do something like that, you're committed, right? So like,
Right.
you don't have to go that extreme in your life and fork over $20,000, but that was a way that I burned my boats. And by doing that, I advanced, I charged, I created a fortitude inside of me that wasn't there previously. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's non-negotiable. I think anyone who has done anything significant, and let's talk about, the people that we've seen, like the Steve Jobs, right? The Elon Musks, these people, the movers and shakers of the world, have all come to that point in their life, probably multiple times, where they had to make a choice. Do I play it safe, or do I go all in here and burn the boats for a retreat? And for me, it was just looking at what's the price of me not doing this? What's the price of me failing and then recovering? And the price of me not doing it was far greater than the price of me doing it, failing, and then recovering, right? And then if I look at the payoff, what's the payoff of me not doing this? What's the payoff of me playing it safe? Well, I'm going to be comfortable, right? I'm not going to have a lot of stress. What's the payoff of me launching this business or approaching this woman and actually like succeeding at it? Far greater. Right. And once I got clear on that, it's like I'm always going to look for moments where I can burn the boats, because it's going to force me into action.
Totally.
So yeah, I hope that answers the question, because it's
yeah, absolutely. It just the whole time I was thinking about it, I was like, I bet if I asked Pete, hey, do you regret in that 20,000? Do you regret like moving? Do you regret all that stuff? You'd be like, hell no, I don't regret
not at all. So, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been my reality too. I remember when, wrapping back around to some of the things I was talking about initially, like the fear of going up and talking to a woman, and me learning, you know what, I can't act like I'm not fearful. I just need to lean into it. And then I accepted and I moved forward. The funny thing is I had studied and I had been asking women questions for a long time. I'd been around so many guys who were just really successful with women, and I'd done so much studying, but I actually really wasn't doing that. And this is, I think, a great topic for you as well. I had done so much like trying to get the perfect plan. And then once I finally like leaned into what I was feeling and I was starting to take action, the funny thing is it was only about 6 or 7 women that now anybody that's listening, don't then go like, okay, 6 or 7, that's the number I have to hit.
Yeah, don't be attached to that.
Yeah. It was like 6 or 7 women that I had gone up and I had approached before I had met one that changed my life. So before I had met a woman that just absolutely changed my life, and it reminded me of a saying that I think it was Evander Holyfield said. I'm pretty sure it's not him, as some other famous boxer. And it was something along the lines of like, you always remember your wins, you don't remember your losses. Like, and I think that's generally pretty true. I can't picture at all the women that I got rejected by, and the rejection wasn't even nearly as hardcore as I thought it would be. I thought it was like, some girl like yelling at you and saying this or saying that and just breaking you down. And you know what it really is a girl just kind of looking at you a little confused. Like, I'm trying to understand what you're wanting and what you're talking, why you're talking to me. And it just kind of fizzles out. Like, that's what I was facing. I don't remember what any of those girls looked like. I don't even remember what the rejection was like, because once I experienced that first woman, it was just absolutely amazing. That's all I remember.
Yep.
And I remember just beating myself up thinking I should have burned the boats faster. I should have like done this sooner, because I remember actually like dropping tears, because I had later on, while dating her, I had seen this picture of like, I was in this cafe that I'd always gone in, this cafe where I had met her. Mm-hmm. And it was a picture of what the cafe building used to look like. It used to be a hotel. And it had a picture of like these 2 or 3 women that were in it, and these guys were surrounding them. The women were beautiful, and there's no way these women are even around anymore. It's such an old picture. I remember looking at that and was like, I wish I could go back and just like meet those women just to see what they're like. And those men that are standing there, they're the only ones that have the opportunity to speak to those. I don't even have, that girl could have been like a dream girl to me. Like, how many women have I passed up on talking to simply because I was worried about myself, that if I would have talked to them, I would have changed their life. She would have changed my life. And instead I prioritized my ego. and but yeah, man,
Yes.
that was huge.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I want to share something because you can do little things to get more comfortable with the discomfort, right? Like one of the things that I do, I coach entrepreneurs on really conquering fear. And so I have an event, and at the event, I take them through this exercise. And it's actually seeking out moments to be rejected to overcome their fear of rejection, right?
Hmm.
By you getting rejected over and over again, it's less scary. And one thing that I do is I always believe that love is the antithesis of fear. You can't simultaneously feel love and feel fear at the same time. It's not possible. And so the way that the exercise that I do is I take these guys and we go into a crowded place, men and women, go into a crowded place. Maybe it's a mall, a coffee shop, a Whole Foods parking lot, whatever it is. And the challenge is to give unconditional love, like a form of unconditional love, to 25 complete strangers. Right. And so that could be they go to a store and they get a poster board and a marker and they write free hugs and they do like a free hugs campaign, right? Or they buy a dozen roses and they go hand out roses to complete strangers. It doesn't have to just be a beautiful woman you're attracted to. It could be an old woman, a kid, a guy, whatever it is. And in the process of doing that, some people will welcome that expression of love with open arms, right? Some people will love it. They will appreciate you. They will thank you for it. They will go and return the favor for other people. Others will not. You will 100% be rejected during this exercise. It's unavoidable. It happens to everyone. And the cool thing about it, and the reason is there's a ton of different reasons that we don't know, right? Why somebody wouldn't accept a hug or why they wouldn't accept a flower. Maybe it could be the fact that they think you're going to sell them something, right? Or they think you have this hidden agenda. But whatever it is, you learn a lesson that rejection is survivable. Like you can survive rejection. And by you going out there and facing and being rejected over and over and over again, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it does, you're that much closer to creating that connection with the next woman that you meet, right?
Right.
And it's so important to be able to act in that face or that feeling of uncertainty and to welcome the rejection. For those of you that are in sales watching this or building businesses, like one of the things that I challenge my coaching clients to do is go out and collect rejections. Go out and collect as many no's as possible. Make offers because those are unavoidable on the path to success. Right? So by you doing that, man, it brings into reality and into presence this future picture that you're so afraid of, because fear doesn't exist in the present moment. Fear is a projection of a painful future. That's something to write down, right? Fear is a projection of a painful future. So when you realize that future is not real, right now is the only thing that exists, then if you're fully present in that moment of talking to that girl, you'll actually realize it's not that scary.
Right. No, I love that. And something that I've definitely seen a lot from all the different people I've worked with personally, one-on-one. I've worked with people. I've worked with soldiers. I've worked with entrepreneurs, high-level entrepreneurs. I've worked with monks. I've worked with MMA fighters. I've worked with all these different people that have done these things where you're like, you did that? You had bullets flying at your face and you got shot once and you're afraid to go talk to a woman? Like, what are you like? That's really crazy. It's really intense. But the interesting thing is everybody has stories that are really intense where you look at them and you say, you are fearless for what you did. That's really hard to overcome. And the story is always the same. You take some random guy that's not trained as a soldier and you go throw him in the middle of a war zone and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
You take somebody that's done a lot of time of like immersing themselves and getting them ready for it and slowly putting themselves in that environment, that person's going to have a different reality. So for you listening, it's like, look at yourself and ask yourself, how many things have you actually already faced in your life that most people would look at and say, how can you do that? That's so difficult to overcome or so difficult to do. And at one point, it probably was really freaky to you. until you started doing it on a regular basis, just as you're
Yep.
talking about, Pete.
Yep. You just triggered something that made me think of a question that I ask myself. When you asked me earlier in this interview, what's a question I would ask myself? The question is, why fear anything when death is certain?
Right.
That's a really powerful question, because death is the destination that awaits every single one of us. You, Ander, myself, the person watching this. And I don't say that to be morbid. I say that to just be real, that every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every month, every year that passes is a second, a minute, an hour, a day, a month, a year that we don't get back.
Right.
Again. And when you realize the fragility of time, fear becomes just not important anymore. Like I think of I want to read this quote because I have it on my computer for me always to read, and it's so powerful. And it's from Steve Jobs, a man that I greatly respected as an entrepreneur. And he gave this at the, I think it was his 2005 commencement speech at Stanford. If you YouTube that or Google it, I highly recommend it. It's like a 10-minute talk.
Speech.
But he says, yeah. He says, in that speech, he says, remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
Right.
And I mean, think about that. Like, read those words and think about, there is no reason not to follow your heart when you feel that, when you see a woman that you're attracted to, right? Or when you see a vision for your life that's greater than the life that you're living right now. Because we're all going to die. Like, it's the thing that's certain. So it's like, okay, maybe the fear is still there, but it becomes a lot less scary when you really connect to that and move towards the vision that's most important to you.
Right. Absolutely. So, one thing that I would love to wrap back around to is, you had mentioned how you and I met each other. Lifebook. You were working at Lifebook, and I went through, and in your book, you have that, and I'll let people find it through reading the book, but it's the top 10 beliefs of the unstoppable entrepreneur. And one of the things I loved about that, and you had a similar thing for fitness, and how important fitness was for entrepreneurs and for success in business and whatnot. But one of the things I loved about it is, a lot of the times when I'm reading the book, I'm thinking, this book's awesome, but I just wish I could sit down with this guy and just ask him, like, listen, tell me what your mindset is. Tell me what your core beliefs are. Tell me what the premise is.
Yes.
And that's kind of like, yeah. So I want to understand, how does this person look at life? How do they look at this subject? And Lifebook was really amazing for that. For people that don't know what it's all about, it's really about, you could probably define it better than myself, but it was in my experience, it was quality people coming together and really kind of blueprinting out the way they want their life to look, and going down to, like, the core beliefs of what do you believe in these areas. And it was also interesting to see how each person that was there was really successful in a couple of areas, but had a lot of struggles in usually a lot of other areas. And everybody had their strengths and their weaknesses, but it was interesting it was really powerful seeing how people that had an area of their life that was doing really well had really clear and really profound beliefs. And I was seeing you write a lot of those things down, and it made me think of other things, other beliefs as well. But speaking on that, I think it would be awesome to hear you. Hold on, getting the interruption here for a second.
That's okay.
Speaking on that, I think would be awesome to hear you talk about, because you've had more experience of seeing people really look at their beliefs and reevaluate them. So.
Yes. Yeah. So for sure, I'll talk about that, because I think beliefs are everything. I mean, beliefs are the foundation. It doesn't matter how clear you are on the vision for your life and how purposefully planned your strategy is. If your beliefs don't support that strategy to achieve that vision, then you're not going to take the action necessary. If your belief is that you're not worthy, right? It doesn't matter how how clear you are on what who your ideal woman is and who you need to be to attract that woman, if your underlying belief is that I am not worthy, then you're not going to attract the quality of woman that you could. So I look at this, Ander, as a triangle, right? So if you imagine a triangle here, at the top is your beliefs. Okay, these are your beliefs. This corner is your actions, and this corner is your results. And limiting beliefs lead to limited actions that create limited results, right? So what I've done, and I've learned this because I've been blessed to work and be mentored by the founder of Lifebook, of like really getting clear on, okay, what are these limiting beliefs or these invisible scripts? I love that word. I think a guy named Ramit Sethi says that. Invisible scripts, like you're not even aware of it. What are they creating in my life? And look at every area of your life. So look at the beliefs that you have in your relationships, right? And in your dating. Look at the beliefs that you have in your body. It doesn't matter how clear my nutrition plan is and how clear my exercise plan is if I believe that no matter what, because of my genetics, I'm always going to be fat. It doesn't matter. The beliefs are everything. So you take a belief and you learn to release something that's not serving you, right? And the question is, does this belief move me towards my life vision, or does it move me away from it, right? And then choosing and creating these beliefs that are going to empower you to take the actions necessary to achieve the results that you want are so important. So literally, I will sit down and I'll list out these beliefs that drive the actions for me to achieve my results. And one of the coolest exercises to do is thinking about the character traits, right? You talk a lot about this as a Vimbasi warrior, right? We're talking in this interview about fortitude, right? So what does fortitude mean to you? Like, who do you have to be, and what do you have to do when you're acting and living with fortitude? Because you can look at that and then you can reverse engineer, okay, this is what I could be doing on a daily basis. This is how I could be interacting with people on a daily basis to operate with fortitude or vulnerability or ease or comfort in your skin or authenticity, whatever it is, right? And that's an incredible activity to do. But I highly recommend that. And I know a lot of the work, Andrew, that you do in here is around beliefs, around philosophy, because it's so much deeper than, the tactic and technique, and strategy is important, right? But Tony Robbins said 80% of results are psychology, only 20% is strategy. And it's so true. You've got to get the right mindset in order to take the action necessary. So does that help give kind of an example or an overview of how I view beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean Stevenson was one of the ones that helped me out in kind of seeing something that I think sometimes people need to re-script their beliefs about beliefs and about limiting beliefs. Yeah. And one thing that was taking place for me, I'd heard about limiting beliefs and finding the different notions that you have about yourself that hold you back. But Lifebook and Sean Stevenson kind of flipped something around for me, which was realizing that you could also, you're trying to choose the beliefs that you really do want to have. And I don't think I see people do that as much. They're more like, oh, I uncovered this belief that I have that's holding me back. And it's like, yeah, but you could wipe that clear and you're left with kind of nothing. Are you putting something else there that's driving you forward? And Sean, it was him talking about the whole seeing is believing.
Believing is seeing.
Yeah, believing is seeing. And he was it stuck with me so heavily when he was saying, like, all a belief wants is to survive. So like once you choose a belief, all it wants to do is get more evidence. And I've definitely seen that, where guys are adamant of, women they only like rich guys. We've all thought that at some point. And you could feed that forever. There are so many other examples though out there, and with Sean, he was suggesting, like, first off, pick the belief, and it was the shift for me was realizing that you don't even have to have a belief that even is logical and makes sense sometimes. Most of the beliefs that we have actually aren't logical and they don't make any sense. So you might as well pick one that will serve you in the end. So and then Lifebook summed that up for me as well. Seeing these beliefs that sometimes I laughed over and I was like, that's the most ridiculous thing. but you know what? That's so much better than the belief I have currently. It's something that's positive.
It's so
So,
true. It is so true. Oh my gosh, I had a train of thought that was really good, and I'm trying to go back to it because I was so caught up in what you were saying. So let's go back. We're talking about beliefs. Oh
uh,
yes, seeing is believing, right?
mhm.
Or believing is seeing. When you
Yeah,
when you choose a belief, what happens? Well, whether you choose it or not, what happens is when you have a belief, your mind will only see evidence and proof that supports that belief. So if your belief is I'm not attractive, if
right,
your belief is girls are only attracted to rich men, then
right,
you won't even notice that girl who's beautiful who's flirting with you. You won't even notice it. It will be literally happening in your reality in front of you. And your
right,
belief is so strong that you've got blinders on and you cannot see it because you're thinking, your mind is looking somewhere else. So the power of this, Andrew, is what you just said is not getting rid of that limiting belief with nothing. It's choosing an empowering belief. And when you choose and connect to that belief, then your mind starts seeing the proof and the evidence that supports that belief,
right,
right? It's always been there.
right,
That's the thing. This is the crazy part. But our mind will either generalize or delete things because our mind can only handle so much information. And
right,
it generalizes things and deletes things based on our belief systems. So if you were to choose more empowering beliefs, then you would be deleting the things that aren't in alignment with those beliefs.
mhm,
Like when you were able to shift your mindset around rejection and what it meant. Looking back, you don't even remember the times you were rejected,
right,
right? Because it didn't have any meaning to it. What had meaning were the amazing connections that were created as a result of being bold and facing your fear of rejection.
absolutely.
Dude,
Yep.
I'm not going to lie, this interview is good. I want to go back and watch the recording of this.
Right, right. No, man. Yeah, yeah. It is. This is solid, man. We can go on for days. I feel like.
Yeah, we could.
Um, yeah, I mean, and to give an example to the guys that are listening, like one of the beliefs and an example of me working with a lot of, you've had that experience. You have your experiences like this is what worked for me, and then you become a coach, and then you work with a lot of people, and then you go, oh well, what works for me isn't always what works for other
True.
people, and you
Yep.
get a lot more insights of what really actually is at the core, which is why there's the essential traits in the first place.
Yep.
I wasn't a master with all the essential traits. It's that I noticed, oh, this is really important. And some guys are really good at it. And that's kind of like the only reason why they're really successful is they have like 2 or 3 of these that they're really skilled at.
Yep.
And, so one of the beliefs that I definitely had that I needed to change was I was raised in a really religious it's a really religious family growing up. And it's not something that I resonate with or believe anymore. But I remember being raised with this idea of, women are not sexual. They're not. And if they're going to be sexual, if they're going to have that aspect of that, romantic, intimate side of them, they're only doing it because the man really wants it and he's basically manipulating it out of a woman. That held me back so much because what the mindset I had was I want something that women don't want and I have to like figure out how to get that out of somebody. And
Oh,
with the past
jeez.
that I had, that was horrible. I never wanted to be that guy, seductive integrity. That was something that was huge to me. I wanted to have integrity. So that belief automatically prevented me from taking any action because I was starting with this idea of women were not sexual. I saw that belief to be true for so long and I had friends that were trying to point out to me, I was a DJ at the time, a long time ago. I had plenty of options that were in front of me to make a move on or take actions on. And I just never did because I just didn't see it and was like, I would view it as like hurting a girl or like I'm saying, like if she's sexual with me, I must somehow there's something wrong with her or like I'm taking advantage of her. So I remember having to flip that around and actually encouraging my mind in the opposite direction of, you know what, I found out that was really inaccurate because women were telling me, I'm very sexual. Like,
Yes.
oh, okay. And I remember choosing, you know what, I'm going to choose to see how women are actually a lot like me. They have sexual desires and they have a desire for a deep intimacy and a raw connection. And They want it to feel right. They want it to feel right, but if it feels right, they're totally interested. They're all about it. And all of a sudden, women started coming out of the woodwork. They were all about that. And the other thing that I was trying to say, an example of clients that I've worked with, everybody said, I'm sure, Pete, you probably said this at some point. I think we've said this together when we were in Peru.
Okay.
It was like, oh, I just got to move here because, man, there's just so many.
Oh my gosh.
Ladies.
Yes.
The amount of ladies that are out here is just so abundant.
Yep.
And, I remember going and visiting you in Chicago, and I was thinking, man, I got to move to Chicago. Chicago's amazing.
Yep.
It's so common that's one of the reasons why I don't usually let people work with me in person, because if they fly out to me, they end up thinking, where you live is the key. It's just, there's so many women. It's like, no, it's not. And guys usually only see what they believe is available.
Yep.
So I'll fly out to where a guy's at or wherever it is. There's women everywhere. All you really need is, to have more than enough option is like one woman a day that you do a double take with, where you're like, you know what, she looks interesting. And if you took advantage of that, you would have so many dating options if you just practice on a regular basis. But men are blinded, absolutely blinded. And they only see the women that they think that they can get. So average guy sees there's a beautiful woman that walks by. If he doesn't know exactly what to say, if he doesn't believe that he could earn a quality relationship with a woman like that, it's like she doesn't even exist. He barely even notices her. So for you listening, what are your beliefs? What is it do you think you can actually attract, and what can you earn, and what do you think you can handle? Do you really think is it really true that if you got rejected once, it's going to debilitate you and break you down, or are you capable of so much more than that? So
I love it.
Cool. Cool. Well, I think we can go on for days, but to end it off here, fill the guys in. What could they do if this conversation really resonates with them? What are not only just some steps, but actual ways to get in touch with you or just with your work? Fill us in.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Well, first of all, guys, if you were just passively listening to this, go back and watch this again and be consciously watching this. Write down the stuff that Andrew shared, that I shared, because there's really some golden nuggets in here. I listen to a ton of podcasts, listen to a ton of audiobooks, and it's so easy today to get inundated and overwhelmed with information. The value of this interview was not in the information that we shared. It was in that you applying this information to your life and going and taking their action. And so there's more than enough examples to do that. Just go back and do it. One way to connect with me, if you guys want to stay connected to me, is of course, go to my blog, my website, which is designafearlesslife.com. For those of you guys that really resonated with your desire to face more of your fears, to conquer your fears, one thing that I'd love, Andrew, to gift to this group is something that I put together called the Face Your Fear Challenge. And I'm making it completely free and completely complimentary, but it's basically a 5-day virtual challenge where, one of you would opt in and you would get a video from me, one video a day for 5 days. And every single one of these videos would teach a topic of fear and then give you a specific challenge to go face and overcome that fear. And it's really cool because we do it as a tribe, we do it as a community, and it's completely free. You'd be facing fears like the fear of public speaking, the fear of rejection, which we talked a lot about on this interview, the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, and the fear of charging what you're worth. Those are the big 5 fears. So I'd love to gift that to you guys. And if you'd ever like to come and experience what it really feels like to conquer and face fear, I do this event that Andrew, you'll be attending soon, I know,
right,
called the Fearless Life Experience. And it's a 3-day experience, and I limit it to 12 high-performing people. And we go through literally the experience of conquering fear. So I hire a surf school. We take you out surfing, facing the fear of the unknown. We go hang gliding in San Diego, and I teach a lot around mindset and peak performance. And the result that people get is, number one, they transform their relationship with fear so that it never stops them again. And two is they walk out with a crystal clear vision of their life and a plan to make it happen. So if that seems of interest to you, then let me know and let Andrew know, because I'd love for you guys to go through together. But the place to go to learn about that is the Fearless Life Experience. That's www.fearlesslifeexperience.com. And I just realized I forgot to mention the link for the challenge. The free challenge is at challengeyourfear.com. And Andrew, would you be able to link those up in the notes of this interview for them?
Yeah, I'll plug all that in, as well as kind of a summary of the interview, and yeah, so all that will be below. And guys, anybody that actually follows through with any of that, reach out to me, and hopefully I'll be able to make it at the same time. So that'd be awesome. So, yeah, that'd be great. And what you said was so on point. You can listen to this and you can go out. I remember listening to conversations, and I go talk to, I go out on a date with a girl, and I would, I talked a lot. I talked a lot about, there was a time where understanding women is big. There's an essential trait that's all around understanding female psyche. Comprehension and perception of female psyche. It's one of the essential traits. And, I remember there was a time where I was talking about things that I learned and understood about women. And you know what? Women loved it. Women were, oh, you're amazing. But there was a big difference when I made the shift to, I'm never going to talk about how I understand women. I'm just going to be the guy that gets it. And I'm going to let women see that. And that was such a big shift. And the shift I'm talking about is switching from hearing nice ideas and thinking about them and talking about them to your friends, and your friends are impressed and women are impressed, and switching to becoming the person where, what I've always said, there's different levels in Vimbasi. There's different ranks that you can get. The top rank, you don't need to wear a shirt to be at that level. To be a Vimbasi warrior, you should have people in your life looking at you and saying, that guy, he's amazing. He's amazing with women. He's an integrity-based guy. He's really interesting. I want to get to know that guy. And that only comes to you through listening to things like this and actually applying them. So make it a goal to, don't necessarily go talk to a ton of people about this. Instead, make it a goal to take some of these things and go have an actual experience with the things that we've talked about, and then go talk to people about it. Way more profound. So I would bet you would agree. So, right.
I love it.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up here. Pete, always awesome talking to you. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you here soon.
Andrew, brother, thank you so much. Thank you so much, man, for interviewing me and allowing me to share a message with these men. It's truly an honor. So I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, happy to have you on. All right. Talk to you later. See you guys.
All right. Bye.